Hey, what is up YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a tier list on the easiest and hardest zombies maps, in my opinion. Feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments if you agree or disagree with anything that I say. And let's get into the video. So first up is Numa, and to be honest, it's depends what version you would play, because if it was Black Ops 3, I would say it's pretty easy. Black Ops 1 is challenging. No, I'd say World at War is challenging, but not too hard. And the Black Ops 1 version is probably a lot more difficult. I'd say Black Ops 1 version would be very difficult. However, I don't know what version this one is. I'm gonna say, to make it fair, I'll put it in the middle of both of these, just as a precaution, to be honest. But Numa, other than on World at War and Black Ops 1 where it's the hardest, like World at War, only 24 zombies per round, and you can manipulate spawns pretty effectively. Black Ops 3, you have Gobblegums and the Wonder Fizz and all sorts of other mechanics which just make it a whole lot more easier. So I think that it's pretty challenging, but overall it's not too hard as a map. Next up we have Shadows of Evil. To be honest, I'd say it's pretty easy overall. The actual map flow itself is pretty nice. There's quite some open areas. It can become a lot more challenging depending on what you're doing. So in terms of like high rounds, it's quite challenging. But overall, the map for casually playing it, I'd say is pretty easy. Next up we have Ascension. Now, just straight up, if you die before round 30, it's just, I don't know how you can die before round 30 on Ascension. The map's got so much open space, and it has the Thunder Gun. Let's get Shadow thrown out the way now. I've never played it, so I can't really give an opinion. The same with Carrier as well. Next up is Ancient Evil. Now, Ancient Evil is quite challenging as a map. The Easter egg is pretty challenging as well. The boss fight is quite difficult. And it's mainly just because of Black Ops 4 mechanics that makes it as challenging as it is. The map itself I absolutely love, but it is more on that challenging side. Next up we have Voyage of Despair. This one straight away it's going to be very difficult. Voyage is not a map that a lot of people enjoy. I, however, love Black Ops 4. It's one of my favourite games. And Voyage of Despair is, I would say, the hardest map on Black Ops 4. Simply because of all the tight areas and the stalkers or I think that's what they're called, and the Blightfall, they're making it extra difficult as well. Next up is my favourite map, Call of the Dead. Again, I'd say it's pretty, very difficult, just simply because of you have George constantly following you around. You don't have any infinite damaging wonder weapons, so high rounds is pretty hard. It's said that round 100 is impossible on Call of the Dead. On solo anyway. I don't know if that's true. I mean, there might be strats eventually found to be able to bring it up to 100 or past, but until that's done, we don't know. Next up we have Nuketown. Now, Nuketown in itself, I would say is pretty easy, but because of the randomness of the perk drops, and if you get unlucky you're not getting Jug until like round 20, that instantly pushes it up to challenging, but it's not too difficult. It's a challenging map for sure, but I wouldn't say it's as difficult as either Voyage or Call of the Dead. Next up we have Gorod Krovi. Now, it's probably not one of my favourite maps. It's a good map, don't get me wrong, but it's just my thoughts on the map. I don't enjoy it as much as the other Black Ops 3 maps. Overall though, the map's pretty easy. It's pretty decent for maneuverability and getting around and stuff. The Easter egg I'd say is challenging. Especially if you don't know much about the map. Also, high rounds on Gorod Krovi are pretty difficult simply because the best strategy to use is by going into a small room and constantly using the shield to kill zombies and breaking it and getting a new one. And that process in itself is a quite a difficult one. Next up we have Infection, never played. On to 9. Now 9 is pretty easy. The amount of boss zombies, to be honest, like, it makes it slightly just difficult enough that if it's not in the bottom tier, but it's still pretty easy, especially because of the Heliod Salvo and the Scorpion weapon. They're quite good for holding zombies and then killing the horde, and to be honest, it's probably the easiest and probably why it's the most liked map on Black Ops 4. Next up we have Mob of the Dead. A map that is a lot of people's favourites, not mine however. The Easter egg is very easy on Mob of the Dead, but high rounds aren't, which is the trade-off. Other than the Hell's Redeemer, there's no infinite damage in wonder weapons, and there's not a lot of space other than the cafeteria and the Golden Gate Bridge, where you're realistically going to be the safest. Next up we have Classified, the Black Ops 4 version of 5. This one's going straight into pretty easy. It's not a hard map whatsoever. Because of the different mechanics and things that are on Black Ops 4, it makes it a whole lot easier than the Black Ops 1 version. The only difficult part I'd say would be to do the Easter egg. If it was based on Easter egg alone, it'd be up here because you've got to get to around 150, which I have done. But it's not based off that, so the map in general for casual play I'd say is pretty easy. Next up, Buried. Now, Buried straight away has to go in the bottom tier. There's no way with having the bank as well as the paralyzer that you should be dying unless it's to your own mistakes on Buried. The map is super easy in terms of gameplay. However, I think the Easter egg is more on the challenging side, which offsets that easy gameplay. Next up we have Durice. Now, this is definitely the really hard map. In terms of why, it's simply because of World at War mechanics, dogs being really tanky, and the multiple bugs on the World at War version, which is what I think this is based off of. So, combined of all of that, I think Durice is probably one of the hardest maps. Next up we have Outbreak. It's not too bad, but I don't like the Advanced Warfare mechanics, so it made it quite a bit more challenging, and high rounds are very boring. It's basically using a trap for the entire time. The Pack-a-Punch in the Wonder Weapon doesn't even do good past like round 30, so to be honest, I think this is a very difficult map overall. Next up, we have Tag der Toten. Now, this is another one where it's really easy. Tag is probably the easiest Black Ops 4 map, simply because it has no boss zombies. It doesn't have George, because of him passing away, they didn't want to put him in the map. You have the Thunder Gun and the Tundra Gun, which are both pretty good, as well as a Wonder Wolf variant. And just Black Ops 4 being Black Ops 4, you have the Helion Salvo, which outshines all of it. So it makes the map super easy. Now, Verrucht. The hardest map to ever be made, I think. I've played this map quite a bit over the last couple of days, and I struggled. The World at War version is so hard compared to any other map, to be honest. The zombies have two different sprint mechanics. They have their normal running animation, and then they have this length forward, arms out, just full on sprint mode, which comes at an early round, and unless you're sprinted away, by the time you sprint and turn around, they're already behind you, hitting you. And on World at War, them hitting you means they're gonna bear hug you and drag you into the other zombies. Combined with not much space on Verrucht, it becomes super difficult. Probably the hardest map, to be honest. Next up we have Alpha Omega, the Black Ops 4 remake of Nuketown. To be honest, it's pretty easy again. The Final Reich. I didn't play much of World War II. Mainly because I didn't enjoy it. But I played the Final Reich enough that I'd probably put it in very difficult. Mainly because of the boss zombies on the map. The Wussling and those bomber type zombies and the Brenner, they all made going up higher rounds a lot more difficult. Next up we have Groston House. Again, I didn't play this much, but it's a survival map, kind of like Town and Bus Depot, but probably harder. There is an Easter egg on there to where you can unlock the box, which makes it a bit easier. I'd probably put this in struggle still though. Next up we have Revelations. Now this has to go in the bottom category. Revelations has the Thunder Gun, it has Little Arnie's, it has the Apothecan's Servant, as well as being able to get masks which give you buffs, especially the God Mask. The map is so easy, it's criminal if you don't get past round 30. Next up we have Transit. Transit was challenging. High rounds are very challenging, but I wouldn't say it's hard. What makes Transit harder is the fog and the denizens, trying to run across the map. But if you know how to deal with them, it becomes so much easier. Up next we have Nacht. Nacht der Toten. You'd think it'd be in the top here, but to be honest, I'd say it's very difficult, and I wouldn't even put it even close to struggle. Nacht is difficult, yes, especially the World at War version, but with the different strategies of training in the Thompson room, and keeping certain doors closed, it makes Nacht pretty easy in compared to Verrucht and Derice. You might have Pack-a-Punch on Derice, but the dogs is what makes that harder than Nacht. You don't have anything challenging. It's the very first map ever created. It is challenging overall, and you can easily down yourself if you're not careful, but I think it's just not quite there for the struggle. It's easier enough that you're not going to struggle anytime you play on this, unless it's by your own mistakes. Next up, Zombies in Spaceland. This map, pretty easy. There's a lot of space. It's a very fun map. Probably the best in Infinite Warfare. I really enjoyed it. It's a very cool Easter egg. A difficult boss fight. But other than that, it's not too hard of a map, to be honest. And if you have the director's cut, it just makes it easier. Next up we have Moon on Black Ops 1. Now, Moon, again, I'd probably say is pretty easy. Other than No Man's Land, actually being on the main map itself, having the wave gun, Gersh devices or QEDs, as well as a lot of different areas that's got a lot of space to be able to train, it makes the map super easy for just casual play. I think for things like high rounds, it's tedious, just simply because of the excavator drills, but overall it's a pretty easy map. Next up we have Shangri-La. Now, Shangri-La was probably the map I played the least when it originally came out on Black Ops 1. And that's simply because of it was a difficult map. Going back recently, I would say it's not as bad, but it's still quite difficult. It's a lot more challenging than any of the maps below it, for sure. Next up, the Tortured Path. Didn't play it. Moving on. 5. I've been playing this recently. I'm working on a video of going to round 50 on the hardest maps in COD. That being things like 5, Call of the Dead, Town, Bus Depot, stuff like that. Basically survival maps. So, on that presence alone, I got to round 34 today, when as the time of recording this video. I'd say it's challenging. No, I'd say it's very difficult. Do I want to put it up here? I'm going to put it up here. I'm going to put it as struggle. Simply because, for casual side, if you don't know what you're doing against the Pentagon Thief, for example, a lot of the time, you're probably going to lose your weapons. And if you don't switch out in time, that could be something like a ray gun that you lose. There's not a lot of space, apart from on the second floor, in terms of training space. The high round strategy utilizes the awful Lawton and trap strategy in the upper floor. And I'm not quite sure, I haven't watched too much of the high round strategy, but by what I'm pretty sure is the look of it, it's pretty difficult overall. Next up we have the Frozen Dawn. Frozen Dawn I have never played. You might see a theme down on this bottom row. Next up, Kino der Toten. Now, Kino, I mean, it's probably one of the most iconic maps, but there's no way you should be dying before round 30 on Kino, unless you make a big mistake. It has the Thunder Gun. It has way better mechanics than what it would have had if it was released on World at War like it was originally meant to. There's a lot of open space. There's good traps. It's really, really easy, to be honest. Next up we have the Tortured Path. Don't know what this one is. Never played it, so it's a part of the Tortured Path. But I have no idea what it is. to be honest. Next up, Attack of the Radioactive Thing. Now, the map itself, I haven't played it enough to where I would say if it's challenging for high rounds. I haven't watched anything on high rounds either on this map. But the map in itself, I would say, is pretty challenging. No, pretty easy, I meant. Simply because, like, especially with Director's Cut, being able to get through the map is quite easy. You also have the Kendalls on Attack of the Radioactive Thing, which are really good. And the Wonder Weapon, it's okay. I didn't get too much use out of it, but I wouldn't be able to really tell you for higher up in the rounds. From what I played, there's a lot of space, it's pretty easy, but I'm guessing it could get pretty difficult. Next up we have Zetsubo no Shima. Other than tedious, like the map's pretty tedious, other than that it's again pretty easy. A lot of open space. It's got the Skull of Non-Sopway, which is the best specialist. It's got an easy but good Easter egg. And the Masamune is a really good wonder weapon. Next up we have the Darkest Shore. Didn't play it. Descent. Didn't play it. Next up we have Town. And of all the survival maps, this is definitely the easiest. I don't think anyone would have any issues with getting to round 30 on this map. There's so much open space. It's got not a lot in terms of weapons, but the ray gun and the ray gun Mark II can definitely get you up to round 30 at maybe 40, like without any issues. Next up we have the Giant. This one is going to be challenging, not too hard, simply because the Giant Black Ops 3 mechanics, it's Derice but without all the bullshit, basically. Next up we have the Mess Fight. I don't know why. I mean, I haven't done it, so it doesn't matter. I've seen a lot on it and it looks very difficult. It's the last thing I need to do on Infinite Warfare, to be honest. I just haven't managed to get there yet. Next up we have Blood of the Dead. I actually prefer Blood over Mob, simply because it adds extra stuff, extra areas, which I do use quite a lot. The Magma Gat is a great addition. It upgrades the Spork to another stage, which makes it an infinite damaging knife, but you wouldn't really use that only, especially with other things in Black Ops 4. But overall, other than the Easter egg, which is pretty difficult, I'd say it's challenging but not too hard. Next up we have the Beast from Beyond. Now, the Beast from Beyond, I'm going to just put it straight up into very difficult. The map in itself plays okay. There's some nice space. The Easter egg, however, by God, when I was going through that with my friend, we had a rough time. The boss fight at the end is such a pain in the ass. And that's the main thing that would be very difficult about it. Again, this is all just my opinions. If you have any other thoughts and you'd like to say where you would put other things either above or below, depending on how difficult they are, leave it in the comment section below. I go through and read every comment. I also reply to every comment, so feel free to let me know in the comments. Next up we have Rave in the Redwoods. I didn't play this too much, but from what I saw, it was a pretty easy map from what I played. Went through the Easter egg super quickly. It had a great boss fight, but overall I think it's quite an easy map. We now have Farm and Bus Depot, which are both gonna, well, yeah, they're both gonna be put into struggle, simply because of there's no Pack-a-Punch on Farm, which makes grinding to higher rounds and things much longer. And Bus Depot is like Knacked. It has no perks. Which in turn again, and with not a lot of space, it makes it super difficult. I think both of these deserve to be in struggle. Next we have Dino, which is a turned mode. There's a custom map for Dino, but that can be done here. Next up we have Shaolin Shuffle. I'm gonna put this one in challenging. The boss fight was the thing that probably gave me the biggest difficulty when I was playing. The map itself is pretty good. I really like the cheese. The Rat King is interesting. I think the hardest part about Shaolin would be the ninja monkeys. The ninjas. Just their kick attack means they can like attack you pretty quickly, and it hurts. Like you could get down pretty quickly from a ninja. Next up we have Die Rise. Other than the large drops and things, I would say Die Rise is pretty easy. The map has a lot of open space, other than slowly moving around. I did a pistols only challenge on this map not too long ago, which will be uploaded soon, and it was so easy. Next up we have Dead of the Night. Now, Dead of the Night, I think we'll put in challenging. And I simply think it's mainly only because of the Nosferatus is why why it's challenging. When they hit you, you can't heal for a certain amount of time, and it makes it quite difficult. So, other than that, it's a pretty good map. I enjoyed it. Next up we have the Tortured Path. Again, never played. Another Tortured Path version, I guess. Let's go on to Der Eisendrache. Now with the balls, the amount of space, the Ragnaroks, like, there's just no reason for this not to be in the bottom tier. Like, round 30 is what everybody should be easily getting on this map. Next up we have Origins, and to be honest, I would put this in very difficult. The slowing down with the mud, the Panzer, the Black Ops 2 mechanics, other than the Ice Staff, it's pretty like, the Ice Staff makes it easier than it should be, but other than that, it's a pretty difficult map overall, especially for casuals. Getting into this map for your first time, or even at first 5 times, there is no doubt that you're gonna struggle. But once you get used to everything, it does push this down, and the better you get at the map, it goes further down. I'd put it down here if it was based on me alone, simply because of how easy the map is for me now. But I'd say overall it's probably very difficult. So that was my tier list of the easiest and hardest zombies maps. Let me know in the comments what you think and if you would change things around. If you liked the video and you'd like to see more from me, please leave a like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Enjoy the rest of your day.